Okay, let's talk about that book. You know the one. The bright orange cover, that title you just can't miss. Mark Manson's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. This thing isn't just a book, it's a full-blown cultural landmark. But what's really fascinating is how it managed to become both a global bestseller and, at the same time, a magnet for some pretty intense criticism.
And when I say massive, I mean it. We're talking something like 20 million copies sold. It shot to #1 in over a dozen countries. This wasn't just some popular book, it was a global phenomenon. It clearly hit on something that millions of people were looking for.
And that really brings us to the big question here. How can a single book help so many people, yet be so incredibly polarizing? What is it about this message that gets people so fired up, either defending it to the death or tearing it apart? Well, let's get into it.
So, to really get why so many people love it, we've got to start with the biggest misunderstanding about the book. That title, right? It sounds like it's telling you to just stop caring about anything, to become this, indifferent jerk. But the core idea is actually the complete opposite.
Manson himself makes this super clear. Not giving a fuck has nothing to do with apathy. It's all about being brave enough to care about the things you actually value, even if that makes you weird or different. It's about being okay with facing some heat for what you believe in.
And this is what he means by the subtle art. It's a skill, really. It's about being deliberate and consciously deciding where you're going to spend your energy. Because you only have so much of it, right? So instead of wasting it on things that don't matter, you save it for the things that line up with your deepest values. It's all about being intentional.
Manson actually breaks this down into 3 main ideas, or subtleties. First, as we said, it's not indifference. Second, and this is key, you can only brush off adversity if you're laser-focused on something way more important. Think about it. You'll put up with a grueling workout because you care more about your health. Same idea. And third, you're already choosing what to care about, all day, every day. The goal is just to start making those choices on purpose.
This leads to another huge reason the book clicked with so many people. Its totally counterintuitive approach to happiness. We live in a world that's obsessed with feeling good all the time, but Manson comes along and says, hey, maybe trying to avoid problems is the real problem. He brings up this cool idea from the philosopher Alan Watts called the backwards law, and it makes so much sense when you think about it. The more you desperately chase feeling happy, the more you remind yourself that you aren't. It's this horrible feedback loop. But paradoxically, if you just accept a negative feeling, you break the cycle. And that acceptance, weirdly enough, feels kind of positive. And this is really the heart of the book's take on happiness. A life without problems? That's a fantasy. True happiness, he says, is about finding the right problems, the struggles that feel meaningful and, dare I say, enjoyable to you. Happiness isn't some finish line. It's the actual process of tackling the problems you chose to take on.
Manson also goes after this idea he calls mass media-driven exceptionalism, this relentless pressure we all feel to be amazing and extraordinary. He argues that just accepting that you're pretty average in most things is one of the most freeing things you can do. It takes off all that pressure and lets you just focus on getting a little bit better day by day.
So, instead of asking what do I want out of life, Manson says you should ask a much tougher, more interesting question. What pain am I willing to put up with? Because who you become isn't defined by the shiny prizes you want, but by the struggles you're willing to go through to get them.
Okay, so that's the side of the argument for why this book is so beloved. But like we said, it is deeply polarizing. So now let's flip the script and really dig into the arguments from people who think this book is, well, not all it's cracked up to be. And the critiques are pretty consistent. A lot of readers feel like the main idea is great for a blog post, but it gets stretched way too thin over 200 pages, making it super repetitive. The author's tone is another huge issue for many. They find it smug, condescending, and just bro-y. A massive criticism is that the whole philosophy is just derivative, that it's nothing more than Stoicism and Buddhism repackaged with F-bombs. And then there are the most serious charges, that the advice is totally tone-deaf to the realities of privilege, and that some of the examples are just straight-up misogynistic, like a really weird part about Jennifer Aniston that left a bad taste in a lot of mouths.
Let's look a little closer at that repackaging argument, because it's a big one. Anyone who's read a little philosophy can see the parallels to Stoicism. The Stoics were all about focusing on what you can control, your perceptions, your actions. Sound familiar? Critics basically argue that Manson just took those ancient ideas, stripped out the formal language, and threw in a bunch of swear words to make it feel new and edgy.
And this right here might be the most powerful critique of all. This quote from a Reddit user just nails it. It's pretty easy to tell people to choose their struggles when you've never had to worry about paying rent or where your next meal is coming from. Critics point out that Manson's advice can feel incredibly hollow for people facing systemic racism, poverty, or discrimination. Struggles they absolutely did not choose.
So, you've got these two completely different takes on the same book. Is one side right and the other wrong? Or is there maybe a third way to look at this? Something that helps us understand the book's real place in our culture.
This quote about a different book really gets to the heart of it. The impact of any self-help book is all about timing. A message that feels life-changing when you're 22 might feel totally cliché and obvious when you're 34. The value depends entirely on where the reader is in their own life, which probably explains why the reactions are so extreme.
And maybe that's the real answer. For a lot of people, the subtle art isn't the last word on philosophy, it's the first. Its edgy, no-nonsense style makes these really big, complex ideas from Stoicism and Buddhism feel accessible to a generation that's totally overwhelmed with anxiety. It's like a gateway drug to deeper thinking. So, where does that leave us? Well, the book is a paradox. People love it because it makes big, heavy ideas feel simple and doable. And people hate it for that exact same simplicity, its tone, and its pretty significant blind spots about privilege. So the verdict? Its value isn't objective, it's personal. For the right person at just the right time, it can be a really powerful catalyst. For others, not so much.
Which kind of leaves us with the book's central challenge, but aimed right back at you. Forget the book, forget Manson for a second. Just think about your own life. The question is still there. What are the problems you're actively choosing? What are you truly willing to struggle for? And what does your answer say about what really, really matters to you?